Hello, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending on where you're listening or watching us from. So privileged and honored to be another session of Leadership Talk with Adegoke. This is the 39th session, and it's an honor to be with me tonight. My sister, my friend from North Carolina, Reverend Tadron Cowles. She's an amazing lady, fascinating lady. She's a sister, she's a friend, and it's such an honor to have you on Leadership Talk with Adegoke. You're welcome.
Thank
Tell
you so
us,
much for having me.
who are you? Who is Reverend Tadron Cowles?
Oh, wow. Well, thanks for asking. First of all, I want to say thank you again for this opportunity.
Yeah.
I am a wife of over 20 years. I am a mother of a blended family of 5 children. And my youngest child just graduated from high school this past weekend. So I will be able to add empty nester to my introduction really soon. And I'm looking forward to it. I'm also a grandmother. But other than that, I am also the pastor of the Ebenezer AME Zion Church in Waxhaw, North Carolina. I'm also a writer and an instructional designer for the Department of Church School Literature of the AME Zion Church. Yep. And I am also a coach with the John Maxwell team. And I really enjoy every opportunity that I have to share about leadership. I tell people I am all things leadership.
Wow,
Because I
wow.
truly believe that everything rises and falls on leadership.
Amazing, amazing. Now, I know you're not just a pastor, you've been a pastor for so many years, and your dad was a pastor. Could you speak to that, being a pastor's kid?
I can. Growing up as a pastor's kid, I was always in church. I was a PK, and the good thing about it is that I actually love church, which is a different testimony for some of my other friends who feel like they were drugged to church. They didn't like always being at church, but I really did love church. I loved everything about church. I loved to
Wow,
sing in the choir. I loved to go to Sunday school. I loved church, the services. I loved everything about church. But the reality of it is that I never had any desire to be a pastor. It was never my dream. It was never my intention. It was never my plan. And
wow,
I served in the church for over 20 years, particularly as an executive, an administrator. I've served along with pastors for so many years, but there
wow,
was never in any intention of mine to be a pastor myself. But here I am.
wow, wow. Amazing, amazing, amazing. So, how did you get into leadership?
Oh, I'm glad that you asked. I was called into leadership. And I was able to fully embrace that call because of John Maxwell. I didn't really understand what leadership was all about, the necessity of it, the benefit, the power of it, what it was all about. In my estimation, being a leader was like being a boss, where you bossed everybody around. And I didn't understand that that had nothing to do with leadership, right? And so I had come to a point in my life where I had tried everything, and it just seemed like I was failing and falling apart. I had tried several different careers, industries. I was in retail. I sold cars one time. I went to beauty school. I
Wow,
was just trying to find myself. I may have necessarily been running from a call to ministry, but I was just trying to find myself, right? I went to college and got a degree in criminal justice, thinking that instead of me being a pastor or a minister, I would just be a youth worker. And to be honest, it was like a compromise. I'm like, okay, God, I'm not going to do ministry, but I will work with troubled young people. And that's kind of what I wanted to do, but I never was able to get employed at any juvenile delinquency. Everything that I tried, it was just falling apart. But one day I came in contact with John Maxwell's book, The 21 Laws of Leadership. And I turned to the page where it said that you will only go as far as your leadership. And I
wow,
understood that to mean that, number one, I was not submitting to the proper leadership because I thought I knew everything and I wasn't listening, And the second thing is that I was not developing my leadership skills.
wow.
So when I understood now that in order for me to be successful, I needed to submit to leadership and I needed to develop my leadership skills. That's
Yeah.
when my entire life started to change, and I
Wow.
moved from where I was to where I am today.
Wow. We're so proud of you. I just want to thank you for coming on this platform, Leadership Talk with Adegoke. We've known way back from 2016. We met in Florida, and it
Yeah.
was a chance meeting, and here we are today. On the platform,
It was a
Leadership Talk.
dream come true. It was a dream come true. I had been teaching from John Maxwell. I had met him one time previous, like in 2007. I
Yeah.
met him, and I always was thinking, "Oh my God, I just really wish that I could, do something with John Maxwell, that kind of
Yeah.
thing." And when
Yeah.
that opportunity came for us to come and be certified with him and to meet him and to be trained and all of that, I was like, "Yes." And I worked three jobs to raise up that money to get
Wow.
to that conference, and
Wow.
it
Wow.
is one of the best investments that I have ever made in myself. It is
Wow.
one of the best investments. And
Wow.
you are a
Wow.
result of it. You let's look at I'm going global now because of my connection.
No, no, it's a great community. I mean, I'm so privileged to I've met a number of people on the
Yes.
platform, and yourself. I mean, you are a fascinating lady. You someone of value. You're authentic, and I just want to celebrate you on this platform. And I know that you're doing great.
Oh,
You're
I
my
love
sister
it. Love it.
from another country, but
That's
we're showing
right.
up together. We're showing up together. Now, can you speak to this? We're looking at leadership and forgiveness. How do you what's the connection between leadership and forgiveness?
All right. Well, it's first of all, let me say it's interesting that you asked and invited me to be a part of this broadcast on this subject because I was just in the midst of dealing with this. I was having to ask for forgiveness for something that I had a shortcoming, a mistake, or a fault that I had. It was on my part, and I had to humble myself and I had to be small and big enough to ask
Wow.
for forgiveness. And then when after all of this happened, I get this call and say, "Hey, we want you to come and talk about forgiveness and leadership." So I think it was a God thing. I think that for me to have this opportunity was something that God was saying to me, this is not just about you. It's a lot of people who need to understand the
Mm,
connection between leadership and forgiveness. First of all, I think the connection is that you have to forgive yourself because as a leader, you are going to make mistakes. You are
mm,
going to fall. You are going to fall short. But you have to realize that you're not failing, you're learning. Right? You're not failing, you're learning, but at the same time, it doesn't change the way you feel about what you've done. I've made some mistakes even as a pastor, and I beat myself up. I just felt like that if I had done something better, if I had said it differently, if I had done something different, it would have turned out differently. And in some instances, I cried because I
mm,
just could not forgive myself for the mistake that I made. I
mm.
should have been more sensitive. I should have paid more attention. I should have listened closer, right?
Yeah.
So, leadership, first of all, is that you have to forgive yourself. You are
Mm,
not perfect. You are not a superhero.
yeah.
You may feel, great about the wonderful things that you get a chance to do as a leader, but you will fall sometime. So
Mm,
forgive yourself. Give
mm,
yourself room for error. Maybe you're not where you think you ought to be. Maybe you don't have what you think you ought to have, but it will come together in time. It's okay. You messed up. Learn from that mistake. Forgive yourself and move forward. The second thing is that we have to model behavior as leaders. And if you don't know how to forgive, how can you be an example for others? You
mm,
have to be the example and show people that this is what you do when you do wrong. This is what
mm.
you do when you mess up, when you disappoint, when you fall.
Wow. 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 She'll be back on. It's been amazing. If you're just joining us, this is Leadership Talk with Adegoke. I've been on with Okay, she's back on. She told me.
See, God,
Yeah.
I want God to get the glory for this. Okay, come on.
No,
I know God wants to do something in this. I know He does.
go on. Go.
So I'll hold the phone closer. That you have to model the behavior. And the next thing is that unforgiveness can affect you as a leader because people need to in come on somebody that as a leader you recognize that you make mistakes. People need to know that you make mistakes, and they
Yeah.
need to see you be big enough to say, you know what, I was wrong, I made a mistake. And I think that that gives people a chance to respect you more and to
Hmm,
follow you because
hmm,
they understand that you understand
hmm.
that you understand that you are not perfect, that you will fall sometime, that you have given yourself room for error, and that you know that there are other people, who may have known better than you, but at the time
That's
you
right.
didn't listen. So
Hmm.
you failed, or but not really failed. You learned, and then you had to say, you know what, I was wrong, you were right. And in
That's
the
right.
end, as bad as you feel about it, people will feel good to know that they have a leader that is big enough but humble enough to say, to acknowledge when they have done wrong.
Wow. 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 Reverend, you're just dropping the nuggets. Very powerful. We just want to celebrate you. This is Leadership Talk with Adegoke, the 39th edition, and I'm on with Reverend Chadrin Kyles. She's from North Carolina in the USA. She's a John Maxwell certified coach, speaker, and trainer. She's also a grandmother. She's a mother. She's a wife. She shares 5 children with her husband, and she's showing up massively tonight. Now, I just want to find out, your relationship with your dad. Before your dad passed on, is it a few months ago? Um, but for months, he stayed with you in your house, and you were nursing him before he passed on. Can you speak to your relationship with your dad?
Okay, I kind of lost you at the very end. Kind of said,
Yeah,
can
I
I
was
speak
talking about
to something that had to do
with your dad. Your connection with being a
the
pastor's
connection with
kid.
my church?
Yeah, your relationship with your dad. Parents. Forgiving our parents and dealing with those issues.
Right.
Yeah, can you speak
Okay,
to
here
that?
you go.
Yeah.
I got you. Okay, yes, I can. One of the most powerful things that I had to embrace that is so surprising for me is the concept of humanity.
Yeah.
When I was in seminary and I was asked to envision myself or to embrace or to describe or embody what it meant to be a human being, I struggled.
Hmm.
And it's interesting because I said, I'm not a human being, I'm a Black woman. you know, I had not identified myself as a human being. I didn't.
Yeah.
Um, and so I really didn't. I didn't see. I saw myself as a woman. I saw myself as a Black person. I saw myself as a pastor, a leader. I was able to identify with every role that I played except a human being.
Wow.
And it's striking to understand that, wow, do you really know what it means that you are a human being? you know and so I think that when you understand humanity and you understand the fact that as a human being, you do not have control. That's why we have divinity. There is humanity and divinity.
Hmm.
You are a part of humanity, not divinity. So your parents don't know everything. They have tried to do the best that they can. And until you put yourself into their shoes and understand that, first of all, they are human.
Hmm.
Second of all, they did the best that they could. When you understand that they have a story, that they have a background,
Hmm.
then it will help you to better understand why your mother may have been so hard on you, why your father may have done this to you, why your mother didn't do this to you, because they have a story too. They are only human too. you know. And so when you just embrace yourself as a human being, and then that way you give yourself room for error, that I will mess up, that I won't know everything,
Wow.
I do have shortcomings, I do have failures, then you can better understand your need for the divine, that I
Wow.
do need the wisdom of God, that I do need the power of God, that I do
Wow.
need the love of God. And
Wow.
when you understand humanity and the need for divinity, then even in spite of the things that people have done or not done to you, that the things that your mother did or did not give to you, God makes it up. He makes up the difference. And
Wow.
he makes up the difference through leadership, that either the people who lead you will
That's
mentor
right.
you, will guide you, will teach you, will provide things for you, opportunities for you, or you will develop in such a way that in spite of what was happening to you in your childhood with your parents, your siblings, or whoever, you still will get to be where you need to be.
Wow.
Leadership will make the difference.
Wow.
So
Wow.
humanity, divinity, leadership.
Wow. Humanity,
the
divinity, and leadership. That's awesome. Now I want you to speak
Yeah.
to this. How do you, forgive those who have harmed you in the past, those who have hurt you in the past? How do you find yourself to, let go as a
Able
leader?
to get, you know
I
what?
leave it at that.
Right. I thought about that. Listen to this. This is an interesting concept. In order for somebody to have hurt you, they had to have a unique position, power, or importance that gave them the position to even hurt you in the first place.
Yeah,
Do you hear me?
I hear you.
So, because anybody can't hurt me, a person that I don't know can't hurt me. If they lie on me, it don't hurt me. If they treat me wrong, it don't hurt me because they're a stranger. I don't know them. You know, if somebody's competing against me and they do something against me, or they're jealous of me, or
Yeah,
they are, hateful towards me, it doesn't bother me because I expect for somebody in the earth to feel that way about me because that's
yeah,
a part of humanity.
that's
As
right.
human beings, and particularly as Christians, we will suffer. We will be persecuted. We will have persecution, misunderstanding. Jesus was misunderstood. There is no way around it. But in order for me to be hurt, there had to be a position that I gave you that allowed you to be able to hurt me, that
Yeah,
I trusted you. You were somebody that I expected to do better. I
yeah.
expected that I could trust you. You were
Hmm.
my pastor. You were my parent. You were my spouse. You were my child. You are my friend. You understand what I'm saying? You are
Yeah,
my confidant. I expected you as my doctor. I
that's
expected
right.
you. I gave you a position, right? So if
Yeah,
I gave you a position, that meant that I must have thought something very highly of you in the first place. So
yeah,
watch this. If you focus on the wonderfulness of that person that allowed you to give them that position in the first place, and you allow that to override the this mistake that they made,
yeah.
you will begin to heal because
Hmm.
you will realize that he was such a wonderful doctor. That's why I made him my doctor. He
Hmm.
messed up this time, but I have to forgive him because if he wasn't so wonderful, I would have never made him my doctor.
Wow.
I would have never married him. If he wasn't so wonderful, I would have never married him in the first place. So when
Hmm.
my husband does things wrong to hurt me, I realize the reason why I married him is because he's dependable. I married him because he's hardworking. I married him because he cares about me. You know what I mean? I married him because of the qualities that he had. Okay, now he messed up and I have to forgive him, and then I have to watch closely now, because
Hmm.
forgive doesn't mean that I'm going to be like, okay, I forgave you. And then I give you quick room to repeat what you did, you
Yeah.
know, but I have to watch closely. That's a part of the strategy that we'll
Hmm.
talk about maybe future, that there's a strategy that comes with you talking about leadership, and leadership and forgiveness, is that
Yeah.
you have to watch people closely. You just have
Hmm.
to watch people closely.
Yeah.
I have to watch you closely and say, okay, you hurt me. Let me watch closely your character and
Okay.
see where did I go wrong when I put you in that place thinking that you had the character that you don't have. You
Wow.
don't have that. So
Wow.
if I don't watch closely, then I will allow you to be in another position that will hurt me again.
Wow.
But if I watch closely, I will realize, you know what? Maybe that's a demand that he just can't meet. Maybe
Wow.
this isn't an expectation that I have to remove. You see what I'm saying? I
Yeah.
have to remove that expectation.
Wow. 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 Amazing. If you're just joining us, I've been speaking with Reverend Kyles. She's from North Carolina. She's an amazing lady, and we've been looking at the topic leadership and forgiveness. Leadership and forgiveness. This is the 39th session of Leadership Talk with Adegoke. It's on Spotify. It's also on Apple, the podcast. But tonight promises to be awesome, and it's already awesome. So, but if you have questions, I want you to jump in and just ask those questions. Just some feedback. Um, I, yeah, I think you're
Okay.
frozen. Yeah, you're frozen. Yeah.
I got to
Okay.
move around to catch you.
Yeah. Okay. Now someone said Odemi Olaiwale, who's also a fellow John Maxwell coach, speaker, and trainer. I said you're called into leadership. Is from Jos, Nigeria.
Oh,
Toluloke
wow.
Famuyiwa is also a John Maxwell coach. Is also saying that a leader is not a superhero. A leader is not a superhero. Um, my wife is also here celebrating, Reverend Carl. She said, we celebrate you, Reverend Tajwan. And, so, okay, she's back. She's back now. She's back. Wow.
Okay.
Yeah, I think your network is your network
Come
is
on,
playing up a
Lord.
bit.
Come on.
Yeah. So for those who are joining us, if you have questions or comments on this area of forgiveness and leadership, Reverend Cowles is on the platform just to address this this topic. Are you on now? Are you good? Are you good to go?
Oh,
I think we can see
are
you.
we?
Yeah. All right. I think she's going to come back on again. Yeah. So, okay, Joseph Dare is saying, great to be here. I think leadership, leadership can be, like I was saying to someone recently, leadership is a tough journey. Um, you might work with some people and they offend you, maybe your followers, and vice versa. But how can you keep on showing up and letting go of those challenges? For me personally, I mean, people have offended me, but what I just trying to do is I look at the best part of them, like Reverend Kyle said, because if you don't see the best in people, you can never forgive. You have to look at the best part, what they've done in the past, those things that they have done, the wonderful times. Okay, she's back now.
Okay, good. Okay,
Yeah,
great.
yeah, you're
I
back now.
changed. Yeah. I'm sorry. We're gonna get this out. This is an important message for people to know.
I
There
know.
needs to be a strategy. You need to understand what it means to forgive, what forgiveness looks like. I'm very adamant about this after hearing you talk about so many people who struggle in leadership with forgiveness. You
Mm,
know, you gotta forgive yourself. You have got to forgive others. You've got to model the behavior. You know what I mean? You gotta have strategies. You know what I mean? It's so important. It's so important. Even the scripture says, if you don't forgive, then how can you expect me to forgive you?
yeah,
So it is a key to your salvation. Come on, to your effectiveness in leadership.
yeah.
It is key to everything about who you are and what you'll be able to do as a leader.
Wow, wow. Now, what are the signs that you will indicate that someone is forgiven? Uh, you know, a follower, or a friend, or a mother, or a sister.
Right.
What are the signs? Yeah.
Okay, so let me say that first of all, I was asked this question. How does forgiveness feel for you? What does it take? What's involved? Right? So, if you do me wrong, for me, I need you to acknowledge that you were wrong.
Hmm.
right? So, like with my husband, he may not ever acknowledge that he was wrong. If he does me wrong, he may send me flowers. He may be kind to me. He may do extra things to make up to me, but he never says I was wrong.
Hmm.
And at first it bothered me because I'm like, no, if you did me wrong, you need to acknowledge that you was wrong. But that's just not his way. He's not going to say I did wrong. But I do understand that he acknowledges it by trying to make me feel better because he knows that he may have disappointed me or let me down, right? So even with him, for forgiveness means for him, which I don't necessarily agree with, but forgiveness means for him is let's not keep talking about it. I don't want to go over and over it. You did me wrong or I did you wrong. I know that I hurt you. I know it was bad. Let's just move on. Forgiveness for him means that you go back to acting normal. Don't just keep rehearsing it. You know what I mean? So forgiveness for me means you acknowledge it. You know what, Reverend Cowles? I was wrong. I did this. I did that. Once you acknowledge it, then I can forgive you because you have said, you identified that you have done me wrong. Okay.
Hmm.
So we
Hmm.
can work with that. I can work with that. And then we can begin to pick up, like my husband's strategy is, where we left off, and let's try it again. Right.
Hmm. Yeah.
But some people really want to sit down and just talk about it. Oh, they want to cry about it. They need to get all of the emotions out. And sometimes you have to let people do that. They want to know, well, why did you do it? Well, what was you thinking? Did you think about how it made me feel? And they just go through the full dramatic experience, right?
Yeah.
And they want you to continue to acknowledge it, and they want you to continue to lick the wound.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're not going to get that, but
Hmm.
you have to acknowledge, you have to realize that whether they lick the wound, whether they try to make it up through gifts, whether they acknowledge it, something has got to happen that you can visually see that is addressing what it is. We can't just ignore it, because at the end of the day, if you just ignore it, it's going to come out in some way. The
Hmm.
scripture says, out of the mouth comes the abundance of the heart. And
Yeah.
sometimes you are just waiting on that chance to let that person have it because you never addressed it and you never forgave them. And
Yeah.
sometimes people are acting out with you in your leadership circle. People are acting out in your church. They're acting out in your organization. They're acting out as your follower because that's the only way they know how to address an unresolved issue, is to just act out. And
Hmm.
sometimes you just have to stop and say, okay, uh, you can either deal with it publicly, or you can say, okay, when this meeting is over, I need to meet with this person. But some type of way, you're going to have to address it sooner or later because it will
Wow.
fester.
Hmm.
And you have to realize, in leadership, some people are just resisting and causing chaos and causing problems in your leadership situation because of unresolved issues and resentment and unforgiveness.
Wow. Wow. I was you know, I don't know if this is a fact, but someone was saying that if you have a church that you have a congregation of 10 people, you always have one person that resists your leadership. A congregation of 10. So which is like, maybe you have 100 people, you have maybe 5 or 7 people that just don't like your leadership style.
Right, right.
Is that true? Does that
It,
happen?
it is it is true. It's true. I was gonna say that John Maxwell taught me that with leadership comes skills, strategies, and styles. There are
Hmm.
three things that come with leadership: skills, strategies, and styles. There are different styles of leadership. There are different skills that you have to possess, different characteristics that you need to have in order to be an effective leader. And then there are strategies. So in one of his books, John Maxwell gives the example that he was pastoring at this particular time, and no matter what he said, there was a person in his congregation that was resistant to everything that he wanted to do. But yet he identified that there was also someone in that congregation that person would go along with whatever that person said. So he realized that in this situation, he wasn't the real pastor. He was just the pastor in title. But the other person was the one that the people were really listening to. If Matthew said it, everybody was on board. But if he said it, 90%, then other 10 would be resistant because they would be dependent on what Matthew said. All right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he said he started just hanging out with Matthew, going to Matthew's house, listening to Matthew, talking to him, getting on board with him. And in a real sense, putting in Matthew's mouth and hand the things that he wanted to say and do that he could not do, but Matthew could. And it was so interesting that he taught me that strategy because it happened to me in seminary when I was a part of a group where there was this one girl who just could not stand me. And no matter what idea I had, she would come against it. And then I thought about what John Maxwell taught me in terms of this strategy. And I began to call the other members of the group. And I would say, what do you think about this idea? What do you think? Oh, I think that's a great idea. And I would talk to them. And when we would get on the group call, I wouldn't say anything. I would let the other people talk. And when it was over, they would all agree on it. And it would be my idea, but I didn't have to say anything because
Wow.
I knew that if I said something, that one person would vote against it and she would resist it. But if everybody else was in agreement, I was like, oh, okay, that sounds good. Even though it was my idea, I was just kind of going along with it. Well, that's a strategy.
Wow.
Sometimes you will work with difficult people who will not like you, people
Hmm.
that will resist you, people that will fight against you. And sometimes you have to continue to use strategies and you have to win that person over.
Wow.
Win them over, right?
Wow. Wow. John will say that, people don't care how much you know until they know
Till
how
they
much you
know how. And thank God for that. Thank God for him teaching us that, because when I first went to my church, there were people in my church that were hurt because the previous pastor did not really care for them when they had lost their loved ones. The pastor did not come visit them. The pastor may not have called them. The pastor didn't reach out to them.
Hmm.
And when I found out the pain that the people were having, I didn't take it personally. And that's another thing that we have to understand in forgiveness.
Hmm.
Sometimes we triggered something in a person that was already there. It ain't even about you. You triggered something that they already, like, their mother had done them that way, or their best friend or somebody else had done.
Wow.
And when you did something, it woke up that feeling that they already had and they lashed out on you. So
Wow.
one of the things that you have to do is don't take everything personal. Sometimes
Wow.
people doing things against you that's really not against you.
Wow.
Right. So what I did was I started caring. I started visiting. I started sending cards to my members, calling
Wow.
them, saying, hey, just thinking about you. Can't wait till Sunday to see you in worship. I became a pastor that focused on care. I
Hmm.
personally call my members, send them cards, hug them, love them, and I came to their house.
Hmm.
And that woman, when I got to her house, she said, I've never in all my years had one of my pastors to come to my house and visit me.
Wow. Wow.
So when she found out that I cared enough to call, to visit, to come by, I ain't had no more problems out there, lady.
Wow. 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 Awesome. Awesome. That's good, because I know our listeners watching, all over the world. If you have questions for Reverend Cows, just drop it in the chat box, because we want, as many questions to come in so that we can, she can get feedback. You might be dealing with unforgiveness, and it might be something that's been hindering you, holding you back. There's an opportunity for you to get some, perspective, fresh perspective. So you can drop it in the chat box. And if you also have a comment, regarding unforgiveness, what your views are, you can also drop it in the chat box. Now, I want to find out, what's the consequence of a person not being able to deal with unforgiveness? What's the consequence?
There's a large consequence to it because you need to understand that you are really connected to somebody that's connected to somebody that's connected. And
Wow.
sometimes when you're not forgiving of me, you're blocking yourself from other people that you could have access to, that you're not going to have access to, because when that person asks me about you, I'm going to say no, because me and you have not we haven't been reconciled. So therefore you're not going to get you're not going to get the vouch that you would get from me if we had worked things out.
Wow. Wow.
Um, and another thing too is that when you don't forgive people, opportunities will come that you will miss because you did not reconcile that relationship. So therefore, when the big opportunity came, you know what? I could really connect Reverend Kyle. She is perfect for this opportunity, but I'm not going to extend it to her because you know what? I don't like her. We didn't make up from the last fight that we had, and I'm just gonna find somebody else.
Wow. 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 So what you're saying is that, unforgiveness hinders your progress?
It hinders your progress. It affects your leadership. You don't forgive people. You don't know what you're missing out on when you don't forgive people. And people don't know what they're missing out on when they don't forgive you. You know, people will admire you. They will be inspired by you. They will model your behavior. You know what? If Reverend Cowles could forgive her after what she did to her, I can forgive too. It inspires people to duplicate, if you will, to follow the model that you have laid for forgiveness. You know what I mean? It
Wow.
helps people to understand that they can forgive themselves and they can forgive others. You know that you betrayed me, but guess what? You know, and it goes back to that strategy of giving room for error that I may not have emphasized as much as I would like to, because that helped me give people room to make error. They
Wow.
will give the, if you tell them that something is due on the first, don't don't tell people it's due on the first if you absolutely have to have it on the first. Tell them it's due on the 27th so that'll give
Wow.
them a few more days, because I guarantee you somebody ain't gonna have that thing turned in when you say it. Everybody's not gonna meet that deadline. When you
Hmm.
tell everybody at 3 o'clock, somebody not gonna get there to 3:30. You know what I mean? When you think that this is taken care of, somebody, the ball is going to fall on somebody's, through somebody's hands. And here you are all upset, frustrated, and mad because you did not have a plan B and you didn't give that person room for error. Guess what? You cannot cancel my whole program just because you didn't show up. I invited you to do something. I asked you to do something. And guess what? If you don't do that, my program will still go forward. But if
Wow.
I don't have a plan B and I don't have confidence and I'm not in a situation where I'm a
Right.
great leader to where I can push things forward,
Hmm.
I will put my whole program in your hands. And when it falls through your hands, now I'm all upset because my whole program fell through because I put too much into your hands.
Hmm. Now I want to talk about, this is not a marriage session. The one, the next session that I have next week is on leadership and marriage. But I know you're also, being a reverend. You also in the right place to also speak to this. Now, the issue of unforgiveness in marriage. Can you just speak to that? Just little.
Yeah, I can speak to it. Um, I can say that there are two sides to every story. So if my husband was talking, he probably could tell you that I have maybe disappointed him, hurt him, or let him down. But because I have the mic, I can speak to how he has hurt me. Okay. And my husband has done things to me that really have angered me, frustrated me to no end, made me upset, and just really affected me in such a way where my attitude was bad. I just was upset, and just showing out as a wife because that's just what we do when we get upset. It's like,
Yeah.
you know what? I am ticked, and that kind of thing, and we act out in different ways, right? Um, but at the same time, um, I had to understand that no matter what the problem was, I was not going to leave. You
Hmm.
already have to decide, I'm not leaving. If you say, well, I can't forgive him, you know what? I want a divorce, because we end up in divorce because we feel like divorce is an option. He hurt me, he disappointed me, I'm mad, he overspent, or she didn't do this, or okay, well, let's just get a divorce. But you have to make the decision that divorce is not going to be the option. Now,
Wow.
I can be mad for a week or it could be a day. We however we going to work this out, it will work out. But at the end of the day, we're going to stay together. Even if
Wow.
you sleep on the couch, if I sleep, whatever we do, at the end of the day, we are going to be together. And I think that that's how you have to deal with forgiveness. Now, there are some things that I don't, that I think that are barriers. If he, certain things are deal breakers for me. They just are. And I think that at some point we need to have some type of deal breakers that we established originally. You know what I mean? We
Yeah.
need to have, when my husband and I were dating, we talked about what the deal breakers were. And for me, one of them was you're not going to stay out all night long anywhere unless you are on a business trip. You know what I mean? You out of town, with your family or something like that. You don't get to spend the night all night and all night long somewhere. And I know men and women who do that. I mean, I'm like, what? No, no, no. If you come home tomorrow, you better be coming in on the ambulance. the ambulance better be bringing you in, because if you're gonna come home every night that you're married to me. Period. That's a deal breaker. You see what I'm saying? So those kinds of things were established at the beginning.
Hmm.
So now, if it's not something like that, but now at the end of the day, if you've done something to hurt me, we are going to stay together. We're
Wow.
gonna we're gonna be together. At the end of the day, it's gonna be me and you.
Wow.
Period.
Wow.
Period.
Wow. I mean, I mean, maybe is it because you're a pastor's kid? That's why you're talking like this? Or,
No, it's because I'm passionate. I'm all
oh,
things leadership. This is my call. It is my passion. I study it. I live it. I practice it.
because some people might be listening, all over the world and say, oh, maybe she's because she's a reverend. She doesn't understand what my husband has done. She doesn't
Uh-uh.
understand what my mother's done. What are you going to say to that?
I do understand. Well, I don't think that this is my platform to expose all of the things that I have had to forgive.
Yeah.
Um, I would say that sex and money are two of the greatest struggles that married people have. And when it has come to money or sex, I think that I can I can speak to it.
No, go ahead. Just speak.
You
We
know.
want to hear you speak because I know you got a lot of things on your inside, but
You
this is
know
not
it.
a
You
marriage
know it.
session.
You know it. I know it's
But
not the marriage section, but we're gonna move on because let me tell you something. I started
yeah,
something called Lovers and Leaders, and
yeah.
that was a ministry at some point, and maybe just a project that I had that was between two people who were both leaders. We're lovers and leaders, like we're married, and both of us operate in leadership roles, right? So whether you are a president of a college and I'm a pastor of a church, or if we're both working in these organizations, we both are leaders. So I understand firsthand some of the struggles that married couples have had, particularly lovers and leaders, right? So for an example, and let's just deal with it in general, there has been times when I'm going to give you two examples. There have been times where, for an example, if a woman or a man takes medicine, they have to take a medication, right? This medication affects your drive, your interest, your health, your energy, right?
Hmm.
But you never mention it. And so now the person doesn't understand why you're always tired, why you're always grumpy, why you seem disinterested.
Wow, wow, wow.
But it's basically because of the medicine that the person is taking, right? Or it's something stressful on the job that is draining the passion, the desire, the interest out of them, And so then you may automatically start assuming that that person is having an affair, or that person is falling out of love with you, or they're not interested with you anymore, And then instead of you having that conversation with them, or with them being honest with you about something, the relationship just goes spirals down, 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 right?
Hmm.
Well, the reality of it is that this is the responsibility of both of you. Both of
Okay,
you are responsible.
you need
It's
to
not his
communicate.
fault. It's not
Yeah.
his fault. So what I'm getting to is that no matter what the scenario is, there is always joint responsibility to whatever it is the problem. It's not just his problem that he changed medicine, or she changed medicine, or her hormones changed, or whatever, her health changed. You were supposed to communicate that. That is
Yeah.
your job. That person
Wow.
don't know that medicine affected you sexually. That person don't know you took on some extra things on the job that's got you wiped out. That person don't know that you're hurt because of a sibling issue or a parent issue or a best friend issue. All they know is that you have begun to disengage and they don't really know why. And they never brought it up. Then you, when they ask you, you said nothing. They said, well, what's wrong with you? Nothing. And you know what I mean? Now you upset. Something is
But
wrong.
you know
What
this.
is it?
But this happens in marriages. The wife will say nothing and nothing. You keep on trying to. It's like you're trying to bring her back to life and saying nothing. So the nothing could go on for 2 days.
It
So
could
what?
go on. It could go on and on. And I think, I think, nothing. So I think that you do have to be compassionate. You do have to be
Wow.
loving and patient. But at the end of the
Wow.
day, you have to decide that no matter what it is that we're going through, we are in this together. And I
Wow.
think that in marriage, I feel that God will fix it to where some type of way that person got to come to you. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? They might have been saying nothing, 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 but the Lord will fix it with some type of way. They're going to have to come to you, okay? Because they can't just keep ignoring you and acting like they don't need you, they don't want you, you're not available, you're not there, you're not present. We are in this together. And it's
Hmm.
only so long you're going to be able to sleep on this couch or to ignore me or not to speak to me or whatever it is you're doing. It's a time frame to that. And if
Hmm.
it was me, if I had known differently, I would have said, you know what? You got another week for this. And
Hmm.
next week, you're gonna have to do something. I'm gonna give you a little time.
Wow.
But we're gonna cross the line on it. I'm not
Wow.
gonna continue to just, no, you're gonna have to by next week, we either need to talk about it or you need to be done fixed it. But there has to
But,
come
but,
some
but,
type of
but Reverend. Now, I think, I just want us to. I'm not saying this is not possible, but it depends on the gravity of the offense.
yes,
Some might
yes.
say you can't just tell me 3 days and you want
Oh
me.
no, 3 days you got to be able at least to talk to me about it. I ain't saying it's got to be fixed, but I can't. I'm not. There has to be a boundary because when you start talking about marriage and we gonna stick together, what if you stay with that person for 6 months and they are never ready to open up intimately with you? It's been 6 months now. You ain't said nothing. They ain't said nothing. And ain't nothing happened. You know what I mean?
Wow.
What's
Wow.
gonna happen? You know what I'm saying? You can't continue to give that kind of space that you're not engaging. Because then the first time I start being engaged with somebody else, I'm making grounds for us to divorce.
Mm,
And
mm,
you are too. Both of us are putting us in a place where we can lose this marriage.
mm, mm.
I would be like, okay, well, just remember every couple of weeks that you keep denying me, you're pushing me further and further away. I just want to remind you of that.
Now, Reverend, I just want to thank you. You've spoken to so many areas, but I mean, this is a talk that quite a number of people are so much interested in. They're battling with unforgiveness. It's a major challenge. Now, how do you address this issue of money? Money, creating friction, you know, to lead to unforgiveness. Maybe, you keep on spending the money, you're not accountable, you keep on doing it and doing it. Just speak to that,
I
please.
think that first of all, you have to be honest. I had to be honest. My husband is terrible with money, and it doesn't matter. I told him this last time if we went on vacation and I gave him $2,000 to spend, he would overspend and we would be in the negative when we get back from vacation. He just finds a way to spend,
Wow.
And when I asked him how much did we spend, he said, "Did you have a good time? All right then. Well, if you had a good time, that's all that matters." No, that is not all that matters. I did have a good time, but how much did we spend? Where are we? We've been to dinner, we've been to the beach, we've been shopping, we've been here, we've been there. Where are we at now on what we can spend? Don't worry about it. Whatever you want, just get that because he is so interested in making us have a good time that
Yeah.
he feels like we'll just make it up when we get back. And it doesn't work that way. It just doesn't. And like I tell him, maybe we could eat at fancy restaurants for 2 nights, and then the next night we might eat at a fast food restaurant. We might not can't eat fine dining the whole week we're here. We have to spread. But him, well, you want steak, you want lobster, whatever you want. Let's just have a good time. Let's eat it. And when we get back, we'll work it all out when we get back
We
home.
sorted out.
No. you know,
Because
you know.
you were thinking of the after event, he's looking at the event, you thinking of the after.
I'm a visionary. I'm always thinking about the full picture. He is always thinking about right now. What do we want right now that would make us happy right now? And that's his mindset. One time he told me, you can't take the money with you. What?
Wow.
So my first step is you have to understand that person's values and really accept you listen, not necessarily accept it and be okay with it, but be honest about it. Because I hadn't been being honest. I was frustrated, I was mad, we were arguing, we were fussing, but I never would just be honest enough to say, and he wouldn't be honest enough to say, you are just not doing a good job with the money. You're not. So with me, I would give him a detailed report. When I was over the money, here's what we brought in, here's what we spent. I have a spreadsheet, okay? I can email you the sheet, I can print it out, give it to you. Here's all the receipts of everything. He does not, he appreciates it, but he's not going to do that. He's just not going to do it. Yeah. So we argued and fussed about money all the time. He said, I'm not going to work this hard and I can't buy myself something. Well, if the budget is, what budget item are you going to pull it from?
Wow.
What you mean budget item? So it was just a constant argument. But so that was the first thing is that we argued, but we had to be honest. And then we just had to compromise. We just really had to come to a compromise. It couldn't be, money is one of those things where you can't just draw the line and say, no, it's going to be like this. You have to compromise. Okay. So, you going to need money to smoke your cigars. You know what I mean? Okay. You going to need your hair money. You're going to need your pizza money, which I already bought groceries, so I don't think that you should have pizza money. You should eat whatever I cook, but if you got to have pizza money, fine. But we're going to cut back on this. You know what I mean? Like, you got to give them some room for pleasures. You got to give them some. And then another thing, too, is sometimes if it seems like you sneaking, but sometimes you just have to put something away and that person just can't know.
Yeah. My wife
you can't let the right hand know what the left hand is
when
doing.
I'm excited, I want to spend, and she just said, I kept this away, for the rainy day. I said, but I told you we needed to do this. She said, no, I know that we'll always need, so
right. If I let my husband know how much money we have in the savings, I guarantee you he'll find a reason why we need to spend some of that money.
Wow.
Well, we need to put some tires on the car. Well, if you figure out another way, because this is going to be the savings. So I just don't tell him. He don't know how much we have in the savings account. I'm not going to tell him.
Wow. But you said you're going to be, the Bible says that, the man found the wife and they were naked and not ashamed. But you got against scripture,
You're not gonna know. But you know what? Another thing too is that my husband takes me for granted now because he says one thing about my wife: she ain't gonna never be broke. I know she got some money. I know if I tell him I don't have no money, I know you got some money. I know you got some money because you ain't gonna be broke. Because he know I'm never gonna spend up all my money. Yeah. I'm never gonna spend up all my money. Yeah. You gonna spend up all your money, and then you gonna come to me and want to borrow some of my money. I'm gonna still have some money.
Well, we need to thank God for our wives. I want to salute you. If you've just been joining us, I've been having a great time with my friend from North Carolina, Reverend Tajin Quaus. She's a fascinating woman. She's a grandmother. She's a mother. She has 5 children shared with her husband, and she has a
a unique perspective.
Yeah, a unique perspective. She's a pastor. She's been a pastor for almost 20 years.
Well, I've been in ministry for 20 years, but I've been a pastor for 5, a senior pastor for 5 years.
Wow, excellent. Now, I just want, got a lot of comments. Someone said, what you, also a John Maxwell team member in Lagos, Nigeria, Abiola Shoremeku said, I resonate, with what you said,
about I saw that.
Yeah. Odeyemi Olaiwole said, husbands are
Husbands are
providers
providers and wives.
and wives are
But
managers.
guess what? But guess what? To my friend who said that, that may not always be the case.
Yeah.
Husbands are providers, but women can be providers too. And sometimes the men are better with the money than the woman. So it's not a gender thing. It's a skill. It's a ability thing. Do you have the ability to manage our finances the best, whether you're the man or the woman? And what are
Hmm.
you gonna do in cases when the woman makes more money than the man?
Hmm. Hmm.
So
Hmm.
let's stop put it into wives,
Okay.
husband, gender. Let's just put
Okay.
it
So
in.
so so it's not always the case that the wives are the husbands are providers. It could be that the wife is earning more than the husband. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that the man could have been shown, trained, taught how to budget and how to make wiser decisions than the woman. There are plenty of women that overspend. They got to get everything. They got to get the hair done, the nails done. They got to spend. They got to shop. They got to go here. They got to go there. They got to have all of these things. And the man is like, "Oh my God." I
Yeah.
just happen not to be one of those women. And I tell
Hmm.
my daughter the same thing. Sometimes you could give your own self a manicure or a pedicure. Sometimes you
Yeah.
may not get your nails done. Sometimes you need to cut your own hair. Sometimes you
Hmm.
need to take your lunch. You can't go out to eat every day. So there are strategies. But see, let's go back to this real quickly before we move on. It
Yeah.
all is about vision, okay? Leaders have vision.
Hmm.
And I had to understand at some point in my marriage that one of the reasons why we were failing in this area is because I was not casting the vision of where we were trying to go financially. My
Hmm.
husband didn't see that what we want to do is we want to save up enough money to where our bills can be paid up for 2 or 3 months or more. So if we get sick or something happens, we're able to cover
Something
our
forward.
bills. Right. Or I wanted him to see that one day we'll be able to travel. But if we broke, we can't never travel anywhere. You know what I'm saying? I needed him to see that there are
Yeah.
things that he wants that
Hmm.
you can get, but we have to put something to the side. So one of the things that helped us is for me to cast vision. Come on,
Hmm.
somebody. As a
Hmm.
leader, you must cast vision. So when you begin to tell your wife, every time you overspend, you take away from my retirement because
Hmm.
I could see us living on the beach, or I can see us in a condo. I can see us with 2 cars that's paid off. But that every time you overspend, that affects us both having 2 cars that's paid off. You see what
Hmm.
I'm saying?
Yeah.
I told my husband we need to travel to Africa. I've been, you haven't been. I could see us both taking a trip to Africa, but we can't take it if you keep on overspending.
Yeah.
So as a married person, ask yourself, why is your spouse comfortable with overspending? What is
Hmm.
it that they don't see that's affecting them right now? That you can
Wow.
overspend right now because you don't see how it affects you in the future.
Wow. 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 Honestly, I mean, you've been getting a lot of vibes. People are just celebrating you on this platform. You're just so wonderful. You authentic, and this is who you are. I mean, you're not just coming to fake it. And this is you. I mean, I'm just so proud of you. For speaking the truth to the situation. Now we just have two more questions because
Okay.
I know that you're just coming from church, and you made a lot of sacrifice, to be here, and people are listening all over the world. They're going to be watching the replay with so.
Wonderful, wonderful.
If you've enjoyed the session, just say thank you to Reverend Cows. Just say thank you
Thank
in the
you.
chat. Just say thank you. She's
Look, he asked me some questions. I was trying to remain in a more calm and professional, more intellectual. Say,
yeah,
but when you start hitting my spots, I'm like, wait, let me push that to the side. Let me give it to you straight, right?
yeah, yeah. No, I mean it's an honor, having you because when we talk about this area, yeah, Tolu Waleke Famuyiwa, is a friend of mine. Is from Florida. He's
Ah,
saying
thank
thank you,
you.
man. Yeah, because this area you're speaking to is so sensitive. It's not just anyone that can speak to it because people can see through, even what we say. Whether this
Right.
is just Yeah.
Right. And it goes back to what you were saying earlier. If you're not forgiving your spouse, but you up in front of an organization trying to lead an organization, but you are
Yeah.
harboring unforgiveness from your children, your spouse, your parents, how effective are you really?
Hmm.
How are you pastor in a church, but you're harboring unforgiveness in your heart? But you got the nerve to be up preaching and praying forgiveness, but you still haven't forgiven your loved ones.
Wow.
You
Wow.
can't harbor it in your heart because you can't be effective in your leadership if you are harboring unforgiveness.
But when is the right time to move on? Do you just sit there, and just continue to, when is the right time to move on? Some relationships are so they're so negative, that toxic. Do you just stay in those relationships? I mean, is it
Mm-mm.
with friends or
Here,
do you
here you are. Let me look into this camera, and I want to talk to somebody that's on the other side of this camera, and I
yeah,
want to tell you something. You are unstoppable.
wow.
Can I help you? You are unstoppable. And don't let anything stop you from being unstoppable. And what do I mean by that? There are so many great things that God has called you to do and to be. And if God has called you to great things, but you are letting people, unforgiveness, you are allowing small minded people, you're letting past failures, you're allowing all of these things to hold you captive, to hold you down, to block you, to weigh you down, then that affects the unstoppable person that you are designed and called to be.
That's right.
Nobody can stop you. And once I embrace that, my husband can't stop me. My daughter can't stop me. I don't care what she says. At some point, she's going to have to grow up, move out, and until she does, I'm going to still stay forward because you can't stop me. I'm going to get this doctorate. I'm going to pastor my church effectively. I'm going to maintain my marriage to the best of my ability. I'm going to be the best mother that I can. I'm going to continue to dream and live and explore and live and be healthy. And you can't stop me.
Wow.
Now, when people get to the point where they can stop you, move them out the way because you are
Wow.
unstoppable.
Wow.
If they can't get along with you and you have tried everything that you can, let them go bye. You are unstoppable.
Wow.
If this man don't want to work it out with you, if this woman can't get on the same page with you, she don't love you, she don't like you, she can't get with your plan, she can't get with your vision, bye, because I am unstoppable.
Wow.
And my husband knows it. If he walk off and leave me today, guess what? I'ma still be great.
Wow.
He can't stop me from being great.
Wow.
Thank you.
Wow. 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 Wow.
He can't stop me. So I want to say to oh Lord.
Wow. I think the network is playing on reverend. She'll be back shortly, but we've been so blessed. We've been so blessed. We've been so blessed. She's shared so many things tonight. On this area of forgiveness. But what she's just saying is that we are unstoppable because sometimes you're in a toxic environment, and no matter what you try to do, people still see those negative things in you, and they don't just want to accept you. Um, and it could be a tough place to be. It could be a tough place to be. But what she's saying is that we are unstoppable. We're unstoppable. Sometimes you just feel that what else can you do? What else can you do to continue to show up and add value to a person that doesn't just want to accept you. Sorry, you're back on again.
Listen, let me tell you something. Can I tell you something?
Yeah.
I am at a facility talking to you, and while I was here, this lady walked up to me and brought me this note. She said, "I am Tara. I'm a believer. I'm a minister, and I've been hearing your conversation."
Yeah.
And I've been blessed by listening to your conversation. Do you see what I'm saying? You
Wow.
can't stop me. I'm gonna bless somebody, even if somebody is overhearing me do a broadcast. I'm gonna bless somebody because I am purposed to be a blessing. I am
Wow.
ordained to be a blessing. So I just wanted to mention that when you asked me how do you know when to shake things? You shake it when it hinders you, when you know, if it's gonna stop you from purpose, from living out your, and a bad marriage can't stop you, unhappiness can't stop you. Guess what? Maybe you don't have the most wonderful wife, maybe you don't have the most wonderful husband, maybe he has issues, but they can't stop you.
Wow. 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 Ah, this has been awesome. I know you've been, trying to, navigate
Hold
to
on
the
for a
end.
sec. Hold on for a second. Okay. Did he leave? Okay.
I'm still here. Sorry. Yeah,
Can
I'm
you
here.
see me? I can't see. Okay, there you here you come. Okay, cool.
Okay, yeah. It's just my
I know something just happened on your okay now. Because I'm back. Okay, I can't hear you though. I don't know what just happened. I can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now I can.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
And so I think that is kind of the question that you wanted. You were talking about how can we ingrain leadership into our culture. How
Yeah.
can we do it? And I think one of the things that I did at my church is that I established core values. I was a part of this organization where we identified the core values of the organization. So I did that for my church. And one of our core values were forgiveness, respect as well.
Yeah.
So we had 5 core values that we operate at the Ebenezer AME Zion Church. One of them is respect. And so we identified and established that at this church, we will respect everybody. We will
Okay.
respect everybody. There were some other core values that we had, but forgiveness is one of them because we understood that as a church body working together, that somebody will be offended, hurt, let down, disappointed. Somebody will misunderstand what you said, what you did. So we established forgiveness as a part of our core values, okay,
Okay.
in this church. So if it was ever brought to me as a pastor, if any issue was brought to me, then one of the things that I would do is pull out what our mission is and what our core values are. Okay, so this is the mission of this church. These are our goals and these are our core values. Now
Yeah.
let's address this issue. Um, let's while being informed by these 3 things: our mission, our goals, and our values, right?
Wow.
So yeah, so that's one of the things. And so so to establish that, you give people room for error.
Okay.
You put yourself in that person's shoes. You
Yeah.
become adaptable. So
Wow.
here's one of the things that you need to establish in your leadership: adaptability. Right.
Okay.
So
Okay.
instead of you being mad because sister so and so didn't show up, you go on and get the program started. Instead of you being upset because something didn't go a certain way, be adaptable, be ready to shift. Okay. Okay. We thought she was going to sing. We're going to have a congregational hymn. Our soloist ain't here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just shift. Be ready to shift. Okay. We thought we
Yeah.
was going to have a special guest, but we're going to put the topic out here and we're going to allow everybody to share. We don't have a special guest on the topic. You see what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
as a leader, you need to always be ready to shift and to adapt and move
Wow.
forward. Give that person room for error. So
Wow.
then,
Be
right,
ready to shift.
be
Yeah.
ready to shift. Be ready to shift. Instead of you being so upset, be ready to move. You didn't follow through with what I asked you to do, but guess what? I'm unstoppable. We're going to still have this program.
Awesome. 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 Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Wow. Just one more question. One more question. So that I leave you to join your family because I know they'll be.
I'm okay. I'm on a roll. I'm
Yeah.
on a
Yeah.
roll.
Yeah. Finally, who are your mentors? Who are your mentors?
Okay, so in terms of mentorship, I define a mentor in my life as someone who has helped me to do something that I could not do on my own.
Yeah.
If I can lead myself, you're not my mentor. If I can open this door for me, then you know what I mean? For me, mentors are people who prepare me for opportunities,
Yeah.
who provide opportunities for me, who invest in me, and who genuinely celebrate me, who
Yeah.
really want to see me be successful. Because there are some people in your life that really don't are really not genuinely celebrating you. It's
Yeah.
like, okay, I got the number one show. It's like, yeah, hey, yay. Instead of saying, yes, I am so, like that. You can feel it when people are genuinely proud of you, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, Pat Sanders Ford was my first mentor. She inspired me to want to be a lady. I was
Wow.
more like tomboyish. I was a girl, but I did not have the ways of a lady. And she taught me how to be a lady, how to celebrate my womanhood, and to have class and style about myself.
Wow.
So I have a brooch on, I have my pearls on, I have my pearl necklace, and the way I dress and the way I carry myself is because she taught me what it means to have style and class and to be a woman and a lady, right?
Wow.
But
Wow.
my mentor, Dr. Tyson, taught me how to be a woman preacher. And she helped me to understand that it's not about how beautiful you are in this pulpit, it's about God. So
Yeah.
take the attention off of you and put it on God. Put your robe on and don't have, you got all your hair, your makeup, your nails. It ain't about that. It's about you glorifying God, right? Then I
Wow.
had a mentor that taught me the importance of teaching, the eight intelligence, learning styles, how to impart information and knowledge into people and that kind of thing. And then I had a preacher that taught me preaching, a mentor that taught me. He
Wow.
gave me opportunities to preach at places I never could have preached. And he showed me how to preach the gospel and the good news of Jesus. And he
Wow.
said, get up there and talk about Jesus and invite people into a relationship with the Lord. So I understood that was what it was about. And then lastly, I had a mentor that taught me how to pastor and how to be a good leader in the church,
Wow.
and
Wow.
one that taught me how to be an administrator. This
Wow.
is how you organize things and run things. And he
Wow.
gave me opportunities. You organize and lead that. You're responsible to execute that. He gave me execution opportunities. Here's
Wow.
the vision, execute. Right.
Wow.
So for me, there's been a combination of people who have
Wow.
taught me how to be a woman, how to be a preacher, how to be a teacher, how to be an administrator, a pastor. You know what I mean?
Wow.
And, and even how to
Wow.
be a wife. Because
Yeah.
this is the best advice my mentor ever gave me. She said, a wise woman builds her house, but a
Mm.
foolish woman tears her house down.
Wow.
And
Wow.
honey, those words resonated with me. So she said, you can dog your husband out. You can act like that. You can not do that. You can do that. But guess what? A wise woman
Yeah.
builds her house.
Wow. On this note, I just want to thank Reverend Carls. Reverend Carls is just, she's showing up tonight massively. Let's just appreciate her once again.
Oh,
Just
thank
want
you.
I
Thank you
just want
so
to
much.
appreciate you. Thank you so much. I just want to appreciate you, your husband, your family, your church, your ministry. I pray for you that there will still be many great things happening for you. On behalf of myself, Leadership Talk with Adegoke, we just want to
Okay.
say thank you, thank you, thank you so much. My wife is also saying thank you. She's saying stay, uh,
Oh, where's your wife?
yeah, my wife has been on the platform.
Oh,
Yeah, her name is,
lady,
yeah, yeah.
lady, I'm telling you, this man is who he is because of who you are. Amen.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Reverend.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Everyone has appreciated you thus far. So until next week, this has been Leadership Talk with Adegoke. Thank you so much, everyone,
All
for
right, God
joining.
bless you.
Thank you. Thank
Take
you. Thank
care. All right.
you.
Bye bye.
Wow.